Today we are back for another training session with Bethany per dome with PH dogs.
My name is Bethany. This is Foster. She is a 7-month-old Australian cattle dog. The first thing that we're going to train her is her name. So if we can't get their attention to their name, we can't really start on any other behaviors. So all I'm going to do is say her name, give her a treat. Say her name, give her a treat. We're using classical conditioning to make that association between name and food. When you're doing classical conditioning, the dog doesn't have to do anything. So even if she doesn't look at me, I'm still just going to feed her. I've got a handful of some freeze-dried treats. They're nice and small, they're easy for her to eat, and they don't get gross in my pocket. So I'm gonna use these today. So all I'm gonna do is say her name and give her a treat. Foster. Foster. You can also say other words, so potato, carrots, Foster. So that way she learns to listen for her name and not just listen for random words. Foster. Foster. Orange. Carrots. Broccoli. Foster. Foster. I try to use the same tone that I'm going to be calling her with too. So usually when I call her, I go Foster and say her name kind of soft. So that's the tone that I use. If you usually have a very strong voice, you want to use a strong voice. So even if she was sniffing grass and she wasn't lifting her head up, I would just shove the food right in her face. Ideally, you want to say her name and give her the treat within 3 to 5 seconds. If it's too much time in between, they're not going to make that association. So if I said her name and I had to walk across the field, hand her the treat, she's not going to make that association. I have a leash dragging on her just to keep her from wandering off, but if your puppy is very distracted, you can just step on your leash and that way you've got your hands free. And that way they only have 4 feet of leash to kind of fart around with. And I can just say their name, give them a treat, say their name, give them a treat. Again, the dog doesn't have to do anything. We're just making the association. So if you say their name, you're going to give them a treat. When you aren't training, think of a nickname, you know, puppy, puppy, but you want to make sure that you're keeping, if you say their name, you're pairing it with food. Name, treat, name, treat. The dog doesn't have to do anything. We're just making the association. So I usually practice this, depends on the dog, anywhere between 25 to 75 treats. Some dogs figure it out really fast and they make that association and they're super motivated. I have one dog that took him 3 lessons before he started understanding that his name actually meant something. So if you have a dog that's a little bit slow, it's no problem, just keep making that association. Just like most dogs are gonna bark when they hear that knock on the door, that's because of that association. We want that same response, but in a good way with their name and with food. So a lot of dogs come running when they hear you pouring food in their bowl. That's another classically conditioned association. So I want that with their name. Whenever you go to a new place, you can always go back to. So again, dogs are not good at generalizing. So if I'm practicing in my backyard, I also want to practice in the front yard, out on walks, in my kitchen. Anytime I say their name, I'm going to pair it with food. You know when you're ready to go to the next step when they start to give attention to their name. So when you say their name, when they actually start whipping around and looking at you, that's when you know that you've got it. Once you have that attention to their name, now instead of just doing name, treat, I'm gonna go name, attention, and then treat. And this is where you can use a marker to mark the eye contact with a yes or a clicker, and then give them the food. So now that I've done my pairings, and again, this can go over a week time, you don't have to do it in one day. What I'm gonna do, because I have multiple dogs, I teach them to recall to their name. And the name means attention. So what I'm gonna start to do, I've got a bag of my treats over here. I'm gonna let her kind of wander over, and as soon as she gets distracted and goes to pull towards it, I'm gonna say her name. I'm going to back up and help her with the leash if I need to, and then I'm gonna reward her when she gets to me. So I'm gonna let her kind of check out. Foster, good girl. Back up, back up, back up, reward her when she gets to me. And then I can use my release word, break. Foster. So I can use my leash, back up, back up, back up. Good girl. Treat, treat, treat. Free. Foster. Good girl. Break. So if she cheats and she checks in, that's cool, but I'm gonna wait. Foster. Use my leash. Good girl. Foster. Good girl. Foster. Help her with the leash. Good girl. Foster. Good girl. This is a common mistake that a lot of people do. They want to use petting as a reward when the dog has zero interest in it. So if you notice when I'm petting her, she doesn't care about me. She's just staring at the food over there. So I may think that I'm rewarding her for that last recall, but she told me, absolutely not. I don't care about your pets. All I want is food right now, which is fine. I just need to know what my dog wants. So a lot of people think that they're using positive reinforcement because they're petting the dog when the dog has zero interest in it. So make sure you're always aware of what does the dog find reinforcing or rewarding in that moment. Right now, she doesn't care about food or about my pets. She just wants the food. So I'm going to use that.
Thank you again for watching. I hope you had as much fun today as we did filming this episode. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.